Welcome, dear listeners. Tonight, we travel deep into the mist-shrouded lands of the Pacific Northwest, a place where the towering evergreens whisper secrets older than time, where fog rolls in from the icy waters, and where shadows move when no one is there to cast them. This is Washington State, known for its breathtaking mountains and rugged coastlines, but behind its beauty lies a darkness, stories that linger in old buildings, abandoned hospitals, and lonely shorelines. These are not just campfire tales, my friends. These are places with documented history, chilling encounters, and spirits that refuse to rest. So, dim the lights, lock your doors, and let's begin our journey into the 20 most haunted places in Washington State. But be wary, because by the time we're done, you may never look at Washington the same way again.
Deep in the forest, outside Sadro-Woolley, Washington, the ruins of Northern State Mental Hospital stand like a grim monument to a forgotten past. Built in 1912, it was once the largest psychiatric institution in the state, a sprawling complex of red brick buildings surrounded by fields, workshops, and farmland. To the outside world, Northern State promised healing and hope, a place where those struggling with mental illness could find care and treatment. But behind its imposing walls, a much darker story unfolds, one of pain, neglect, and horrors that still echo through the empty halls. Northern State was a city unto itself, housing thousands of patients at its peak. Many came voluntarily, seeking help for conditions that were poorly understood at the time. Others were sent here by families who could no longer cope, or by courts eager to hide away those deemed unfit for society. Once inside, few ever left. The hospital grounds became both home and prison, and for many, their final resting place. Rows of unmarked graves still lie scattered through the overgrown field, silent reminders of the lives that ended in isolation and despair. The treatments at Northern State reflected the harsh realities of early psychiatric medicine. Lobotomies, ice baths, and electroshock therapy were common practices, believed to offer relief, but often leaving patients broken in body and mind. Doctors experimented with new procedures, some bordering on barbaric, and rumors spread of patients strapped to tables, their screams echoing down the stairs. Corridors. The smell of antiseptic hung heavy in the air, mingling with the metallic temps of fear. Patients who resisted were often restrained or locked in isolation rooms for days at a time. Many never recovered from the so-called cures meant to save them. Despite these grim realities, life at Northern State followed a rigid routine. Patients worked on the hospital farm, tending crops and livestock in an effort to provide food for the institution and instill discipline. Others labored in workshops, sewing clothes or repairing furniture. From the outside, it seemed almost idyllic, a self-sustaining community nestled in the quiet countryside. But those who lived there knew the truth. Beneath the surface of order and calm was a world of suffering, a place where hope withered and the human spirit was slowly eroded by years of confinement. Death was a constant presence at Northern State. Illness swept through the crowded wards, claiming lives by the dozen. Some patients succumbed to disease, others to despair. Suicide was not uncommon, and stories circulate of patients hanging themselves from pipes or throwing themselves from the upper floors. Their bodies were often buried in simple plots, marked only by numbers or not at all. Today, The unmarked graves remain scattered across the grounds, their anonymity a testament to how forgotten these lives truly were. By the 1960s, attitudes toward mental health were beginning to change, and institutions like Northern State came under increasing scrutiny. Reports of abuse and neglect surfaced, painting a picture of a system that had failed those it was meant to protect. In 1973, after decades of controversy and decline, Northern State Mental Hospital closed its doors for good. The patients were moved elsewhere, the staff dispersed, and silence settled over the campus. But if anyone thought the story ended there, they were wrong. It wasn't long before people began to whisper about strange happenings at the abandoned hospital. Locals spoke of lights flickering in empty buildings, of voices carried on the wind, of shadows moving behind shuttered windows. Paranormal investigators soon flocked to the site, drawn by its reputation as one of the most haunted places in Washington. What they found only fueled the legend. Visitors to Northern State often describe an overwhelming sense of dread the moment they step onto the grounds. The air feels heavy, the silence almost oppressive. In the decaying corridors, the temperature drops suddenly, and whispers seem to drift from the peeling walls. Footsteps echo in the distance, though no one is there. Doors slam without warning, and objects move on their own as if nudged by unseen hands. Some claim to have heard the anguished cries of patients long dead, their voices rising in the night like a chorus of despair. The most chilling reports come from those who enter the old wards. In the dim light filtering through broken windows, shapes flicker at the edge of vision, figures in hospital gowns, faces pale and hollow-eyed. Others speak of a man in a white coat, his form solid until approached, when he vanishes into thin air. The tunnels beneath the hospital, once used to move supplies and bodies discreetly, are said to be especially active. Shadows dart across the narrow passages, and the sound of dragging footsteps echoes through the darkness. Electronic voice phenomena, or EVPs, have captured chilling phrases. Help, don't leave, and the haunting plea, it hurts. Cold spots bloom in rooms that should be warm, and cameras pick up orbs of light or even full-bodied apparitions. Skeptics dismiss these claims as tricks of the mind, but those who have walked the silent halls of Northern State know better. Something lingers. There's something that refuses to rest. Today, the remnants of Northern State Mental Hospital stand as a grim relic of the past. Nature has begun to reclaim the land, vines creeping over crumbling walls and trees rising where wards once stood. Yet the scars remain both on the earth, and in the stories passed down through generations. For some, the site is a place of fascination, a chance to peer into history's darkest corners. For others, it is a place of fear, a reminder of the suffering that once thrived behind those locked doors. When the wind howls through the empty buildings and the shadows lengthen across the deserted grounds, it's easy to imagine the ghosts of Northern State still wandering, lost souls bound to the place where their pain began and never truly ended. The hospital may be silent but listen closely, and you might still hear the echoes, the hum of fluorescent lights long extinguished, the rattle of gurney wheels on tile floors, and the distant, heartbreaking sound of someone crying in the dark.
Fort Vancouver stands as a silent witness to nearly 2 centuries of history, its past woven with ambition, conflict, and tragedy. Established in the 1820s by the Hudson's Bay Company, it began as a fur trading post, a bustling hub where trappers, traders, and indigenous tribes converged to exchange goods. And Native Americans who came to trade or work under contract. For many, this outpost represented opportunity and survival, but for others, it became a prison of misfortune. Epidemics swept through the settlement, claiming lives by the dozens. Measles, smallpox, and influenza hit hard, especially among the indigenous population, who had no immunity to European diseases. Entire families were wiped out, and the land became steeped in sorrow. Violence was not uncommon. Tensions between rival fur companies often boiled over into bloodshed, and disputes among workers sometimes ended in fatal confrontations. Fires raged through the fort on multiple occasions, reducing parts of it to ash. Each rebuilding was marked by fresh tragedy, and each new structure rose on ground that had already absorbed death. By the mid-19th century, Fort Vancouver evolved into a U.S. military garrison. Soldiers replaced traders. The Army's presence brought a new layer of unrest, court-martials, harsh punishments, and the grim specter of war. During the Civil War, soldiers stationed here prepared for possible Confederate threats and conflicts with native tribes. Many never returned home. Some died from disease in the hospital. Others perished in skirmishes or by their own hand. These men were buried in makeshift graves near the fort, their restless spirits said to linger even now, replaced by a meticulous reconstruction that draws tourists and history enthusiasts. By day, it feels like a living museum, a quaint reminder of pioneer life, with costumed interpreters demonstrating blacksmithing, cooking, and crafts of the era. Children laugh as they explore the wooden barracks, and visitors wander through the old bastions without a care. But when the sun sets and the gates close, a different atmosphere takes hold. Shadows deepen, and the silence becomes almost oppressive. It is in these hours, when the fort sleeps, that its secrets stir. Park rangers and night security guards have long whispered of strange occurrences within these walls. Footsteps echo down empty corridors, heavy and deliberate, as if a soldier still patrols his post. Doors slam without a breeze to move them. Voices drift through the darkness, low, urgent murmurs in languages long forgotten. Sometimes it sounds like English, other times French, or the soft cadence of Chinook jargon, once spoken among traders. Yet when the sounds are traced, no living soul is found. One ranger recounted hearing boots striking the wooden floors in perfect cadence, the rhythm of a military march. It started faint, then grew louder, leaving only the pounding of his own heart. In the officers' quarters, a chill often settles without warning, cold enough to make your breath visible even on a warm night. Visitors have claimed to feel unseen hands brush against their arms or tug at their clothing. Some have seen fleeting figures in period dress, a man in a military coat disappearing around a corner, her face pale and expressionless. Perhaps the most unsettling reports come from the old hospital site. Those who linger there after dark speak of soft moans, the rustle of sheets, and the clinking of surgical tools. It's as if the suffering endured within those walls has never truly ended. Skeptics dismiss these accounts as imagination, fueled by the fort's grim history and the eerie creak of timber in the night. Yet those who have experienced the phenomena firsthand tell a different story. They speak of a presence, a heaviness in the air that presses against the skin. Fort Vancouver may appear to be a relic of the past, a place to learn about frontier life and military heritage. But its essence is something far more complex. Beneath the reconstructed walls lies ground soaked with the blood and tears of countless souls, traders, soldiers, settlers, and indigenous people, each leaving behind fragments of their lives, their joys, their tragedies, and some, it seems, have refused to leave entirely. When darkness falls over the Columbia River, and the fort stands cloaked in silence, the past comes alive. Footsteps echo where no one walks. Doors slam where no wind blows. And if you listen closely, you just might hear the voices of those long dead. Nestled on the serene shores of San Juan Island, overlooking the shimmering waters of Roach Harbor, stands the elegant Hotel de Haro. Built in the late 1800s, this Victorian-style hotel exudes timeless charm and grace. With its whitewashed walls, ornate balconies, and expansive porches, the hotel offers visitors breathtaking waterfront views that have attracted travelers for well over a century. While many guests come seeking a peaceful retreat and the beauty of the Pacific Northwest, some find themselves encountering far more than just scenic vistas. Behind its picturesque exterior lies a rich history steeped in both joy and sorrow. And with that history comes whispers of the supernatural. The Hotel de Haro was originally constructed during the booming era of Roach Harbor's lime industry. The town itself was built around the production of lime, a vital ingredient in cement and construction, and quickly grew into a bustling company town. The hotel served as the centerpiece of this growing community, offering a luxurious respite for business leaders, travelers, and locals alike. Its grand halls hosted lively social gatherings, elegant dinners, and celebrations that echoed the spirit of a vibrant, ambitious town. Yet, as with many places marked by history, the hotel's walls have witnessed more than just merriment. Tales of tragedy, loss, and mysterious happenings have woven themselves into the fabric of the building. Among the most enduring stories is that of the Lady in White, a spectral figure said to wander the hotel's corridors and verandas, her presence both haunting and sorrowful. Guests and staff alike describe encounters with the Lady in White, who is often seen as a tall, graceful woman dressed in a flowing white gown that seems to float ethereally as she moves. She appears silently in hallways, sometimes standing motionless at the end of a corridor, other times gliding along the balcony with a distant gaze toward the harbor. Mirrors have reflected her pale face, only for the apparition to vanish when noticed directly. No one knows the true identity of the Lady in White, but local legends speculate about her tragic past. Some say she was a young bride who died suddenly before her wedding day, forever trapped in the liminal space between hope and heartbreak. Others believe she was a woman connected to the lime works or the Hotel Esserly. Daisy, someone whose life ended too soon, her spirit unable to move on. Whatever her story, the Lady in White carries an aura of profound sadness, leaving behind a chill and a deep sense of longing in the rooms she visits. Beyond this spectral figure, the hotel is alive with many other unexplained phenomena. Footsteps have been heard echoing down empty hallways late at night. Doors creak open and slam shut with no breeze to account for them, and soft whispers seem to drift through the quiet air. Lights flicker unpredictably, and an occasional scent of tobacco or a faint perfume has been noticed in rooms long after their occupants have left. One of the most active areas is the hotel's basement, where guests have reported hearing the faint clinking of glasses and murmured conversations, as if an invisible gathering is still in progress. Some say they have felt unseen hands brush against them, or seen shadows darting just out of sight. These subtle yet eerie occurrences lend a sense of lingering life to spaces otherwise empty and silent. Despite having locked them, or feel cold spots that appear suddenly, chilling the skin. One couple described waking to the sound of soft footsteps pacing just outside their door, only to discover an empty hallway when they investigated. Others have reported seeing a translucent figure standing near a window, gazing out over the harbor before disappearing into the darkness. Paranormal investigators have long been fascinated by the Hotel de Haro, using electronic devices to capture sounds beyond human hearing. They have recorded faint voices speaking in whispered tones, unexplained knocks, and even footsteps recorded when the building was vacant. Thermal imaging cameras detect sudden drops in temperature, especially near the hallways where the Lady in White is said to appear. While skeptics attribute some phenomena to the hotel's age, creaking floorboards, and environmental factors, Many believe there is something more, a connection to the lives and stories of those who once called this place home. Despite its haunted reputation, the Hotel de Haro remains a place of warmth and hospitality. The dining room serves freshly caught seafood from the surrounding waters, and the hotel's porches provide stunning views of sunsets that paint the sky with colors ranging from deep purples to fiery reds. Visitors come to enjoy the tranquility of San Juan Island, the rich local history, and the unique charm that only a place with such a storied past can offer. The haunting tales, rather than deterring guests, often add an intriguing layer to their stay. Many visitors report feeling a sense of connection to the island, to the hotel, and to the countless souls whose lives have intertwined with this historic place. The spirits that linger here are not malevolent, but seem to embody the echoes of history, love, loss, and the passage of time. The Hotel de Haro stands as a living monument to its community's heritage, a bridge between past and present. Its walls are more than wood and stone. They are vessels of memory, holding stories that transcend generations. Late at night, when the harbor lies still and the moonlight shimmers on the water, the hotel's ghosts awaken, reminding all who listen that the past never truly fades. For those who venture to this elegant hotel, it offers more than comfort and beauty. It offers a chance to step into a living story. If you find yourself wandering the hallways after dark, pause and listen closely. You might hear the soft footsteps of the lady in white, or catch the faint laughter of long-gone celebrations. You may feel a sudden chill or the gentle brush of a presence unseen but deeply felt. The Hotel de Haro is a place where the past is always near, inviting you to discover its secrets and share in its timeless mystery. Manresa Castle looms over the waterfront of Port Townsend, Washington, its stone walls and towering turrets a striking silhouette against the gray skies and churning waters below. Built in 1892 by architect Charles Bellinger, this grand hotel was designed to impress a romantic castle in the Pacific Northwest, evoking old-world grandeur. Over the years, the castle has served many purposes: a luxury hotel, a private residence, a military barracks, and later, a retirement home. Yet, despite its elegant facade and storied past, Manresa Castle is most famous for something far darker: its reputation as one of Washington's most haunted locations. At the heart of the castle's eerie legend is the tragic tale of Kate, a young woman whose sorrow and despair have made her spirit one of the most well-known and chilling presences within its walls. During World War II, Kate checked into room 36, carrying with her the hopes of a reunion with her lover, a soldier stationed overseas, fighting for his country and promising to return to her. For months, Kate waited patiently, filling the room with letters and mementos, clinging to the hope that soon her beloved would walk through the door. But hope turned to heartbreak when the devastating news arrived. Her soldier had been killed in battle. The loss shattered Kate's world. Overcome by grief, she retreated into the solitude of room 36, consumed by despair. Unable to imagine life without him, she took her own life, hanging herself from the rafters of that very room. Her tragic death left an imprint, a sorrow so profound that many say her spirit has never left the castle. Since that dark chapter, countless guests and staff have reported strange and unsettling experiences linked to Kate's restless presence. Room 36, in particular, holds an atmosphere thick with emotion, a heavy sadness that seems to seep from the walls themselves. Visitors staying in that room often describe an overwhelming feeling of sorrow, as if the air is charged with Kate's mourning. Some awaken to hear the soft sound of a woman's sobbing, echoing faintly in the stillness of the night. Others have glimpsed a figure, dressed in white, gliding silently through the room, or standing near the window, staring out with eyes full of longing. But the ghostly activity is not confined to just room 306. Throughout Manresa Castle, visitors have reported hearing footsteps pacing along empty corridors, the faint sound of piano music drifting through the air, and whispers that seem to come from nowhere. Doors open and close on their own, lights flicker without explanation, and cold spots appear suddenly, chilling the skin of those nearby. Some guests have felt invisible touches, gentle brushes against their arms or shoulders, while others have seen fleeting shadows darting just beyond their field of vision. The castle's history provides context for these hauntings. Originally built as a luxurious hotel, Manresa Castle struggled financially and went through many changes in ownership. During World War II, it was repurposed as a boarding house and hospital for soldiers, a place filled with anxious waiting and quiet grief. The weight of so many lives, hopes, and losses seems to linger in the very fabric of the building. Staff members who have worked at the castle speak openly about their own paranormal encounters. One longtime employee described hearing footsteps following him through empty hallways late at night, only to turn and find no one there. Another recounted the unsettling experience of hearing a piano begin to play softly in the lounge after hours. Despite no musician being present, several have witnessed lights turning on and off by themselves, and some say the spirit of Kate has been seen standing at the top of the grand staircase, watching silently. Paranormal investigators drawn to Manresa Castle have recorded electronic voice phenomena, EVPs, soft whispers, faint cries, and even Kate's name being called out. Thermal imaging has detected sudden cold spots in otherwise warm rooms, and motion detectors have picked up unexplained movements in empty corridors. Despite these findings, the true nature of the castle's hauntings remains a mystery, adding to its allure and legend. The story of Kate resonates deeply, not only because of its tragedy, but because it reflects universal themes of love, loss, and the inability to let go. She is not merely a ghost story. She is a symbol of enduring grief, a poignant reminder of the human heart's fragility in the face of war and separation. Guests who encounter her presence often feel a profound empathy, sensing not malevolence but sorrow, a spirit caught in the liminal space between hope and despair. Manresa Castle today stands as a living monument to its complicated past. Visitors come to admire its architecture, enjoy the stunning views of Port Townsend's harbor, and explore the surrounding historic district. Yet, many also come drawn by the stories of ghosts and the chance to experience something beyond the ordinary. For those who stay overnight, the castle offers more than just luxury accommodations. It offers a connection to history and the unseen. When darkness falls and the castle's halls quiet, the past awakens. The footsteps grow louder in the empty corridors. The piano plays its mournful tune, and Kate's spirit roams the rooms she once inhabited in life. The cold air settles, and an almost tangible sadness fills the space, a testament to a love lost and a soul unable to find peace. Whether skeptic or believer, a visit to Manresa Castle is an unforgettable experience. The grandeur of its design contrasts with the intimate stories of tragedy held within, reminding all who enter that history is not just bricks and mortar, but the lives lived and the emotions felt in every corner. Kate's haunting presence is a reminder that some stories never truly end, echoing through time and space, waiting to be heard by those who will listen. In the end, Manresa Castle stands as a place where love and loss intertwine, where the boundary between the living and the dead feels thin, and where the spirit of a young woman named Kate continues to wait forever, watching, forever longing, forever part of the castle's enduring legacy. The Tokeland Hotel stands on the rugged coast of Washington, its weathered wooden frame overlooking the restless waters of Willapa Bay. Built in 1885, it holds the distinction of being the oldest continuously operating hotel in the state, a place where history lingers in every beam and floorboard. From the moment you step inside, you can feel it. The weight of time, the echo of countless footsteps, the silent stories of travelers who passed through its halls. For more than a century, the Tokeland Hotel has welcomed guests with the promise of comfort and coastal charm. But it has also carried with it something darker, something that has given it a reputation as one of the most haunted places in Washington. The hotel began as a simple inn, built to serve fishermen, loggers, and travelers drawn to the wild beauty of Tokeland. Over the decades, it grew and evolved, becoming a beloved destination for families and visitors seeking a quiet escape by the sea. Its long, creaking hallways and cozy rooms seem to belong to another era, untouched by the rush of modern life. But behind the charm and nostalgia are tales of tragedy and violence. Stories whispered by locals and confirmed by those who have spent long nights within its walls. Among the many legends tied to the Tokeland Hotel, one name surfaces again and again: Charlie. According to the stories, Charlie was a Chinese immigrant who lived in the area during the early years of the hotel. He worked odd jobs, earning just enough to get by, and was known to frequent the Tokeland Hotel for drinks and card games in the basement. Charlie loved poker, and his sharp mind often made him a formidable opponent. But one night, a friendly game turned deadly. The details of what happened next are hazy, clouded by time and rumor. Some say Charlie won big that night, taking home a pot that others felt should have been theirs. Others claim tempers flared during a dispute, accusations of cheating flying across the table. Whatever sparked it, the argument escalated into violence. Witnesses say Charlie left the game and walked out into the night, but he never made it home. He vanished without a trace, and despite searches and questions, no one ever saw him again. Local lore suggests that Charlie was murdered in the basement, his body hidden somewhere within the hotel's walls or buried in the earth nearby. If that is true, then the Tokeland Hotel holds a secret that has never been uncovered. What cannot be denied are the strange occurrences that have plagued the hotel ever since Charlie disappeared. Guests and staff alike have reported eerie happenings, particularly in the basement and in certain upstairs rooms. It often begins with small things: lights flickering without explanation, cold drafts moving through closed rooms, or objects disappearing and reappearing in odd places. But sometimes the experiences are far more unsettling. The basement, where Charlie was last seen alive, is said to be the most active part of the hotel. Those who venture down the narrow stairs describe an immediate change in atmosphere. The air feels heavy and cold, and a sense of unease creeps in like a shadow. People have heard footsteps pacing across the concrete floor, though no one is there. Others report the faint sound of cards shuffling or chips clinking together, as if a phantom poker game is still being played in the darkness. Some guests claim to have seen a figure lurking in the shadows, a man with dark hair, dressed in work clothes from another century who vanishes the moment the lights flick on. The upstairs rooms hold their own share of ghostly activity. Room 7, in particular, has a reputation for strange happenings. Guests have woken in the dead of night to find the door standing open, though they locked it before bed. Others feel the weight of something or someone sitting on the edge of the mattress, pressing down just enough to make the springs creak. Whispered voices drift through the hallways, unintelligible but undeniably real. Some visitors have even reported seeing a man's face in the window, staring in from outside, though the room was several stories above the ground. Perhaps the most chilling experiences involve the feeling of being watched. Many guests say they sense eyes following them as they walked along dimly lit corridors. It's an oppressive awareness, like standing under a spotlight in an empty theater. One former caretaker claimed that every time he walked through the basement after dark, he felt a presence just behind him, so close he could almost feel its breath on his neck. He never saw anyone, but the feeling was so strong that he eventually refused to go downstairs alone. Paranormal investigators have flocked to the Tokeland Hotel, drawn by its reputation and its chilling history. They've recorded unexplained knocks, sudden temperature drops, and disembodied voices calling out names. One group captured what they believed to be Charlie's voice on an EVP recording, a low, mournful whisper saying, "Don't forget me." Others claim to have seen full-bodied apparitions, figures that appear solid one moment and dissolve into mist the next. Despite the stories, or perhaps because of them, the Tokeland Hotel remains a beloved destination. Guests come for the coastal views, the quiet charm, and the chance to experience something extraordinary. Many leave with nothing more than fond memories of ocean breezes and good food, but some leave with something else, a story they can never explain, a brush with something beyond the veil of the living. Late at night, when the wind howls off the Pacific and the old wooden walls creak in the darkness, the Tokeland Hotel feels alive with echoes of the past. The laughter of long-gone guests seems to drift through the halls, mingling with whispers from the basement, and somewhere, in the shadows below, the restless spirit of Charlie lingers, waiting for someone to hear his story, to uncover the truth, and to finally set him free. Until then, the oldest hotel in Washington will remain not just a place of history and hospitality, but a doorway to something far more mysterious, where the line between past and present grows thin and the dead still walk among the living. The Rucker Mansion stands like a sentinel on a hill overlooking Everett, Washington, its stately frame dominating the skyline. Built in 1905, this grand home was the pride of the Rucker family, early pioneers who helped shape the city from its infancy. With its towering gables, elegant bay windows, and sweeping views of Puget Sound, the mansion was more than a house. It was a declaration of wealth, ambition, and success. But beneath its polished wood and ornate details lies a story of heartbreak, betrayal, and death, a story that has left behind whispers in the shadows and restless spirits that linger to this day. The Ruckers were one of Everett's founding families. Wyatt and Bethel Rucker, along with their siblings, invested heavily in real estate and industry, their ventures helping to transform a modest settlement into a bustling mill town. The mansion, perched high on Rucker Hill, was designed to reflect their prominence in society, a home fit for gatherings, lavish parties, and a dynasty on the rise. For a time, life in the mansion seemed idyllic. The halls rang with music and laughter, and its windows glowed warmly against the evening sky. In the early 1900s, Anna Rucker, Wyatt's wife, was said to be deeply unhappy. Despite the splendor around her, she felt isolated and confined within the walls of the grand estate. According to local lore, Anna discovered that Wyatt had been unfaithful. The betrayal struck deep, shattering her world and leaving her in despair. On a cold, gray day, Anna climbed to an upstairs bedroom, opened a window that overlooked the city, and leaped to her death. Her broken body was found on the lawn below, and her anguished spirit is said to have never left the house. From that moment on, the Rucker Mansion became more than a monument to wealth. It became a house haunted by sorrow. Guests and caretakers have reported strange and chilling occurrences within its walls, many centered around the very room where Anna is believed to have ended her life. People speak of an overwhelming feeling of grief when entering the space, as if the walls themselves still hold the echoes of her despair. Some have heard soft weeping in the dead of night, the sound drifting down hallways when no one is there. Others have seen something far more unsettling: the apparition of a woman in a long, flowing gown, her face pale and her eyes hollow with sadness. She appears near the upstairs windows, gazing out at the city as if longing for something or someone lost to time. On occasion, she is seen gliding silently across the landing or down the grand staircase, her form flickering like a candle flame, before vanishing into thin air. Those who have encountered her describe a sudden drop in temperature, a chill that seeps into the bones, and an almost tangible sense of melancholy. But Anna is not the only spirit said to dwell within the mansion. Over the decades, visitors have reported hearing footsteps echoing through empty rooms, doors slamming shut with inexplicable force, and disembodied voices murmuring in hushed tones. Some claim to hear the sound of a woman's sobs mixed with the faint strains of piano music, as though a ghostly memory of a long-past evening is replaying in endless loops. Shadows flit across walls without any source, and lights flicker as if disturbed by unseen hands. One chilling account comes from a former caretaker who lived in the mansion for several years. He spoke of waking in the middle of the night to find a figure standing at the foot of his bed, a woman in period clothing, her dark hair cascading over her shoulders. She stared at him silently for what felt like an eternity before fading into the darkness. After that night, he refused to sleep in the house again. Even the exterior of the mansion seems to hum with residual energy. Passers-by walking beneath the towering windows have reported seeing faces staring out at them when the house was locked and empty. Others have noticed curtains shifting as though drawn back by invisible hands. On foggy nights, when the mist curls around the hill and the mansion looms like a phantom above the city, locals swear they can hear faint cries carried on the wind. Despite its haunted reputation, the Rucker Mansion remains one of Everett's most iconic landmarks, a relic of a bygone era, standing as proudly now as it did over a century ago. Its ornate woodwork and grand design speak of ambition and triumph. Yet its story is one of loss, betrayal, and the lingering weight of sorrow. Those who visit the mansion today do so with a mixture of admiration and unease, drawn by its beauty but wary of the secrets it holds. For those who believe in ghosts, the Rucka Mansion offers compelling evidence that some tragedies leave scars too deep for time to heal. The restless spirit of Anowar, whatever presence haunts those halls, serves as a reminder that wealth and power cannot shield the human heart from pain. Whether she roams the mansion searching for peace or reliving the moment of her despair, her story endures, woven into the very fabric of the house she once called home. As the sun sets over Everett and darkness wraps around the hill, the mansion transforms. The windows glow faintly, shadows deepen in the corners, and the air grows heavy with something unseen. In the stillness of night, when the city sleeps and the wind whispers through the trees, the Rucka Mansion stands silent text for the echoes of the past, the creak of unseen footsteps, and the lingering sorrow of a woman who could not bear her broken heart. In the heart of Seattle's University District stands the University Heights Center, a stately brick building that has served the community for over a century. Its red brick facade, tall windows, and wide stairways tell a story of another time. When the building opened in 1902 as University Heights Elementary School, for decades, it was a place of learning and laughter, where children filled the hallways with chatter and classrooms buzzed with activity. But woven into its history are moments of tragedy and loss, events that have left an indelible mark on the building and given rise to ghostly legends that persist to this day. When the school first opened its doors in the early 20th century, it quickly became a cornerstone of the growing neighborhood. Teachers dedicated themselves to educating the children of Seattle's University District, and for years, the building thrived as a center of joy and innocence. Yet, beneath that cheerful exterior lurked a reality familiar to the era: illness, accidents, and hardship. Life was fragile, and childhood was often shadowed by dangers that could strike without warning. One of the most enduring and chilling tales connected to University Heights is the story of a young boy whose life ended tragically on the school's playground. No one knows his name for certain, but the story says he was playing outside one afternoon when a terrible accident occurred. Some versions claim he fell from the swings and struck his head. Others whispered that he was chasing a ball when he darted into the path of a delivery wagon. Whatever the cause, the boy never made it home that day. His sudden death cast a pall of grief over the school, and according to those who work in the building now, his spirit never left. Today, University Heights is no longer a school. After closing its doors to students in the 1980s, it was transformed into a community center, a hub for classes, performances, and local events. But while the building's purpose changed, its ghosts remained. Visitors and staff often report strange occurrences that seem to center around the old classrooms and hallways where children once played. The most common sightings involve the apparition of a small boy, seen darting around corners or peeking out from behind doorways before vanishing without a trace. Some describe hearing the sound of laughter echoing through empty corridors, high-pitched and fleeting, as if carried on a breeze from the past. Others have reported the rhythmic creak of a swing in motion despite the fact that the playground outside has long been gone. On quiet evenings, when the building is nearly empty, footsteps can be heard running along the hardwood floors, light and rapid, like those of a child at play. More than one person has followed those sounds, expecting to find a lost child, only to discover an empty hallway stretching into silence. The boy's spirit seems playful rather than threatening, but his presence is undeniably unsettling. Guests have felt the tug of an unseen hand on their clothing or the brush of something cold against their arm. Toys left out for community programs have been found mysteriously moved, lined up in neat rows or scattered across the floor as if someone or something had been playing with them during the night. One staff member recalled locking up for the evening, only to return the next morning and find tiny handprints smeared on a chalkboard in a room that had been empty for decades. But the ghostly activity at University Heights is not limited to the boy on the playground. Over the years, The building has accumulated other spirits, as well echoes of teachers, students, and staff who once walked its halls. People have reported hearing a woman's voice softly calling out names in the old classrooms, as though taking attendance for a class that no longer exists. Others have seen shadowy figures lingering near the stairwells or felt the unmistakable sensation of being watched. Cold spots appear without explanation, and lights flicker even after the wiring has been checked and repaired. Paranormal investigators have explored the center numerous times, drawn by its rich history and the sheer volume of reports. Using audio recorders, some have captured what they believe to be the voice of a child giggling or answering questions in faint whispers. Electromagnetic field detectors spike unexpectedly in certain rooms, and motion sensors occasionally trigger with no visible cause. These findings only add to the building's reputation as one of Seattle's most haunted places. Despite its eerie reputation, the University Heights Center remains an active and beloved part of the community. Families gather for events, artists rent studio space, and local organizations host meetings within its storied walls. For most visitors, the building's ghosts are more curiosity than minutia, reminder that history lingers in unexpected ways. Yet for those who have heard the phantom laughter or glimpsed a small figure racing through an empty hallway, the experience is unforgettable. There is something poignant about the spirit of the boy said to haunt University Heights. His presence is not one of anger or malice, but of innocence, frozen in time. He seems to be searching for the joy of play, the simple happiness that was taken from him too soon. And perhaps that is why his story resonates so deeply, because it reminds us that even in places built for hope and learning, life can change in an instant. Late at night, when the building grows still and the lights cast long shadows across the old wooden floors, the echoes of the past stir once more. A soft laugh drifts down the hallway. Footsteps patter against the boards. A door creaks open in an empty classroom. For those who pause and listen, the message is clear. The walls of University Heights remember. And so does the little boy who never made it home. His spirit forever tied to the playground where his laughter once rang out against the Seattle sky. The Walker-Ames House stands proudly in the historic town of Port Gamble, Washington. Its ornate Victorian architecture drawing the gaze of every passerby. Built in 1888, this grand home was constructed for the manager of the local lumber mill, a position of wealth and influence in the small, thriving company town. With its steep gables, intricate woodwork, and commanding view of Hood Canal, the house was the crown jewel of Port Gamble, enduring symbol of elegance and success. But behind its beautiful facade lies something far darker. For decades, the Walker-Ames House has been whispered about as one of the most haunted places in the Pacific Northwest, a place where the past refuses to stay buried. Port Gamble itself has a long and storied history. Founded in 1853 by the Puget Mill Company, it became a bustling hub for the timber industry. The town was meticulously planned, with rows of homes for workers and stately residences for company leaders. Among these, the Walker-Ames House was the most impressive. Its spacious rooms and ornate details spoke of privilege and prosperity, a striking contrast to the modest homes of mill workers. Life inside its walls seemed charmed, but, as the years passed, tragedy and misfortune began to weave their threads through the fabric of the house. Over its long history, the Walker-Ames House has been home to multiple families, each leaving behind their stories and, some believe, their spirits. Tales of sudden deaths, lingering illnesses, and heartache have become part of the house's legend. It is said that some who lived there met untimely ends, and that their restless souls remain tethered to the grand halls and shadowed corners they once called home. Today, the house stands empty of permanent residents, yet it is far from silent. Those who visit the Walker-Ames House often speak of an oppressive feeling that grows stronger the longer they stay. It begins subtly, prickling at the back of the neck, a sense of being watched, but as you move deeper into the house, climbing its elegant staircase or stepping into its dimly lit rooms, the sensation intensifies. The air feels heavy, thick with something unseen. By the time you reach the upper floors, many describe the atmosphere as almost suffocating, as though the house itself is pressing down upon you. Paranormal reports from the Walker-Ames house are as numerous as they are chilling. Visitors have spotted shadowy figures drifting across doorways, only to vanish when approached. Apparitions are said to peer from the windows, their faces pale and expressionless, watching silently as people pass by. At night, lights flicker in empty rooms, and curtains are seen swaying as though stirred by invisible hands. One of the most common experiences involves the grand staircase. Countless guests have reported hearing phantom footsteps ascending and descending the steps, their steady rhythm echoing through the otherwise quiet house. Sometimes, the footsteps are accompanied by the creak of the banister, as if someone were running a hand along the polished wood. Yet when investigators search the area, they find nothing, no living soul to account for the sounds. Doors open and close on their own, often with a force that suggests more than a draft at play. Objects have been known to move from one room to another without explanation. Disembodied voices, soft murmurs, hushed conversations, even the sound of laughter drift through the halls, though the source remains elusive. In some cases, visitors have heard a woman's voice calling out faintly, as if searching for someone who never came home. The upper floors of the house are particularly active. Those who venture into the bedrooms often report sudden drops in temperature, even on warm days. Some feel an invisible presence brushing past them, while others have seen fleeting shapes reflected in mirrors, figures that disappear when turned to face them. One chilling story comes from a guest who claimed to see a woman standing at the end of a hallway, her dark dress flowing and her hair pinned up in the fashion of the late 1800s. She stared silently, before fading like smoke into the shadows. Paranormal investigators consider the Walker-Ames house a hotspot for activity. Teams have captured electronic voice phenomena, faint whispers, and unexplained knocks, answering their questions. Motion sensors have triggered without cause, and thermal cameras have recorded cold spots in rooms that should have been warm. Some investigators have even claimed to see full-bodied apparitions during their visits, solid enough to be mistaken for living people until they vanish before their eyes. What makes the Walker-Ames house so haunted? Some say it is the tragedies that unfolded within its walls, lives cut short, dreams unfulfilled. Others believe it is the energy of generations imprinted on the very structure of the house. Whatever the cause, one thing is certain: the Walker-Ames house has a presence, something that defies explanation and lingers long after the last light is switched off. Today, the house stands as part of Port Gamble's historic district, drawing both history buffs and thrill seekers. By day, it is a picture of Victorian beauty, its intricate details admired by visitors strolling through the quiet streets. But when night falls and the town grows still, the Walker-Ames house takes on a different character. Its windows seem to watch, its halls whisper with voices from another time, and its staircase groans beneath the weight of unseen feet. For those who dare to enter after dark, the experience is unforgettable. The air thickens, the shadows lengthen, and every creak and sigh of the old house feels loaded with meaning. Some leave convinced that ghosts are real. Others depart shaken, unwilling to admit what they felt but unable to forget it. In the end, the Walker-Ames house remains what it has always been, a place where history lingers, where beauty masks something far more sinister, and where the spirits of the past still walk among us, waiting for the next visitor to cross the threshold and step into their world. The Oxford Saloon stands in the heart of Snohomish, Washington, its old-world charm drawing in visitors who crave a taste of history. With its dark wooden bar, vintage, and walls lined with black and white photographs, the saloon feels like a relic of another era. Built in the early 1900s, it has witnessed more than a century of life in this small town. Rowdy nights, whispered secrets, and the kind of stories that never make the newspapers. But behind the polished bar and cheerful chatter lies a darker legacy. The Oxford Saloon has earned a reputation as one of the most haunted places in Washington, a place where the echoes of violence and tragedy refuse to fade. In its heyday, the Oxford was more than just a saloon. It was a gathering place for lumbermen, loggers, and railroad workers who poured into Snohomish during the boom years. The drinks flowed freely, and so did the tempers. Fistfights were common, and the building quickly earned a reputation for being rough and dangerous. But the violence didn't stop at broken noses and bruised knuckles. The saloon became the scene of several gruesome death murders that left their mark on the building and, according to many, opened the door to something far more sinister. The most notorious spirit said to haunt the Oxford Saloon is Henry, a local policeman who met a bloody end during a brawl. The story goes that Henry was trying to break up a fight when someone pulled a knife. In the chaos that followed, Henry was stabbed to death, his lifeblood soaking into the wooden floors that still creak underfoot today. Since then, his presence has lingered in the bar, restless and watchful. Patrons and staff have reported seeing a man in an old-fashioned uniform, standing near the entrance or leaning casually against the bar. At first glance, he looks solid and real, but the moment someone approaches him, he vanishes into thin air. Henry isn't the only ghost said to roam the Oxford. Many of them met grim fates in those shadowed rooms, victims of violence, illness, or despair. Their spirits are said to linger still, moving silently through the darkened spaces below the building. People who venture into the basement often speak of an oppressive feeling, a heaviness that presses on the chest and makes it hard to breathe. Some have heard the soft sound of crying, the muffled sobs of women whose lives ended in suffering. Others have felt a cold hand brush against their skin, or heard whispers in the dark, voices speaking words they cannot quite make out. Apparitions of women in old-fashioned dresses have been seen drifting through doorways or standing at windows, staring out at the street below. One room in particular is said to be the most active, where the spirit of a woman named Amelia is believed to reside. According to local legend, her presence is often accompanied by the scent of perfume, a sudden floral aroma that hangs in the air even when no one is around. Visitors have reported hearing her footsteps pacing across the floor, the rhythmic creak of old boards beneath invisible feet. The main bar area has its own share of strange happenings. Glasses slide across the counter without anyone touching them. Lights flicker despite modern wiring. Cold spots appear suddenly, sending shivers down the spines of those who step into them. On quiet nights, after the last customers have gone, staff have heard the sound of laughter, drifting from empty corners or the faint strains of a piano playing somewhere in the distance. Though no piano has been in the saloon for decades, more than one bartender has locked up for the night only to return in the morning and find chairs moved, doors standing wide open, or items shifted from their original places. Drawn by its reputation as a hotspot for ghostly activity, using audio recorders, some have captured disembodied voices calling out names or issuing warnings in low, gravelly tones. Cameras have picked up mysterious orbs of light, and temperature sensors have documented sudden, dramatic drops in warmth in otherwise stable rooms. While skeptics argue that the building's age explains many of these phenomena, the creaks, the drafts, the flickering lights, believers insist the Oxford holds more than just history. It holds the remnants of lives cut short and tragedies never resolved. Despite the chilling tales, the Oxford Saloon remains a popular destination for both locals and tourists. People come for the drinks, the atmosphere, and the chance to brush shoulders with the supernatural. Some leave with nothing more than a good story to tell. Others leave pale and shaken, unwilling to speak about what they saw or felt within those dimly lit rooms. The Oxford doesn't just serve spirits, it is home to them. Late at night, when the lights are low and the hum of conversation fades into silence, the building seems to come alive in a different way. Footsteps echo down the empty hallways. Shadows stretch and shift across the walls. A cold wind whispers through the cracks, carrying with it the echoes of laughter, the sharp cries of a fight, the faint sob of a woman in despair. It's as if time folds in on itself here, trapping the past within these walls, forcing it to play out again and again for anyone who dares to listen. The Oxford Saloon is more than a piece of Snohomish history, it is a place where the veil between worlds feels thin, where tragedy lingers like smoke, and where the dead still walk among the living. Those who step inside, expecting only a drink, may find themselves leaving with something far more unsettling. The memory of eyes watching from the shadows, of whispers curling through the air, of a cold hand brushing theirs in the dark. In the Oxford Saloon, the past is never truly gone, and neither are the souls who haunt it. The Capitol Theater in Yakima, Washington, is a grand reminder of a bygone era place where elegance and artistry came together to captivate audiences. When it first opened its doors in 1920, the theater was a symbol of glamour and cultural pride for the growing city. Its opulent interior, sweeping balconies, and intricate details transported visitors into a world of sophistication and wonder. For decades, the Capitol hosted plays, concerts, and performances that lit up the stage with brilliance. But behind the velvet curtains and golden trim lies a story that has cast a long, chilling shadow over this historic venue, a story of ambition, heartbreak, and a spirit that refuses to leave. The legend begins nearly a century ago, during the theater's earliest years. Among the many performers who graced its stage was a young actress whose name has been lost to time. She came to Yakima with dreams bigger than the small-town theater that would become her final stage. Ambitious and full of hope, she believed the Capitol was the first step on her journey to stardom. Night after night, she poured her heart into rehearsals, imagining the day the world would know her name. But fate had other plans. The story goes that one evening, after a late rehearsal, the actress climbed to the catwalk high above the stage, a narrow steel walkway suspended among the rigging and lights. No one knows why she went up there. Some say she was practicing lines alone, craving the solitude. Others whispered that she wanted to watch the empty house from above, imagining it filled with cheering fans. Whatever her reason, the moment turned to tragedy. Perhaps her foot slipped on the metal grating, or maybe a loose beam gave way. In an instant, she fell, plummeting to the hard stage below. The impact was fatal. Her dreams, her future, and her life ended that night under the very lights that were meant to make her a star. The shock rippled through the theater community, but as the years passed, her name and face faded from memory. What remained, however, was something far stranger, a presence that seemed to linger in the Capitol Theater. Tied to the stage where her story ended, actors and crew members have spoken for decades of strange experiences inside the theater, especially when they are alone. The most common report is the sound of soft humming drifting through the empty auditorium. It's not the creak of wood or the groan of old pipes, it's a melody, gentle and haunting, as though someone is rehearsing a song from long ago. Often, the humming seems to come from the stage itself, though no one is there. Other times, it echoes from the catwalk high above, the place where the actress met her fate. Then there are the sightings. Many have claimed to see a woman in a flowing gown gliding silently across the stage during rehearsals, her figure bathed in the faint glow of the work lights. At first, she appears solid, almost real, but the moment anyone approaches, she fades like smoke into the shadows. Some say they've seen her in the wings, watching from the darkness with eyes full of longing. Others catch a glimpse of her seated in the balcony, gazing toward the spotlight as if yearning for an ovation that will never come. The balcony itself is said to be one of the most active areas. Stagehands working late have reported feeling eyes on them from above, only to look up and see a pale figure draped in white, sitting motionless in the shadows. A few brave souls have climbed the stairs to investigate, but by the time they reach the top, the figure is gone, leaving only the cold air and the faint scent of old perfume hanging in the silence. Strange sounds echo through the theater when it should be still. Footsteps cross the stage when no one is there. Curtains rustle without a breeze. Props are found moved from their places, as if an unseen hand had been rehearsing. In some cases, actors have felt the brush of something soft against their skin, like the sweep of a gown, or heard a whisper of words they cannot make out. The activity seems strongest before opening nights, as if the ghost grows restless when the theater prepares for a new performance. Paranormal investigators have spent long nights in the Capitol, trying to capture evidence of the woman in white. Many have recorded unexplained sounds, whispers, faint singing, and footsteps on the empty stage. EMF meters spike unexpectedly, and cold spots bloom in the air without cause. Some claim to have seen her full form, a young woman with dark hair, dressed in an elegant gown from another era. standing beneath the spotlight that was meant to be hers. Always, she disappears before anyone can draw near. To this day, no one knows the actress's name, but those who believe in her spirit say she is not angry or malicious. Rather, she is a soul bound by longing, her performer, who cannot leave the stage where her dreams were shattered. She wanders the Capitol Theater, humming softly, watching rehearsals, and lingering in the glow of the lights as if waiting for her moment that never came. For the people of Yakima, the Capitol Theater remains a beloved landmark, a place where the arts thrive and the past whispers through the velvet curtains. But for those who listen closely, its beauty carries an echo of sorrow. Late at night, when the stage is empty and the seats are dark, the air seems to tremble with something unseen. A shadow flits across the boards, a voice hums a forgotten tune. A woman in white stands in the spotlight for just a heartbeat before vanishing into the darkness. She came here chasing a dream, and in a way, she still is forever a part of the Capitol Theater, forever waiting for her final bow. Fort Worden rises above the windswept cliffs of Puget Sound, its massive concrete batteries staring silently out toward the cold waters. Built in the early 1900s, it was part of the Coast Artillery System, a trio of forts designed to protect the entrance to the Strait of Juan de Fuca and keep enemy ships at bay. With its labyrinth of tunnels, gun emplacements, and underground passages, Fort Worden was a fortress of its time, a symbol of strength against unseen threats. Today, the guns are gone, and the soldiers who once manned these walls have long since departed, or at least most of them have. From the outside, the fort feels abandoned, yet imposing. Moss creeps along weathered concrete, and the salty air has gnawed at the edges of what was once state-of-the-art military engineering. The sprawling grounds have been transformed into a state park, drawing hikers, campers, and history enthusiasts. By day, families wander the grassy fields, and children run through the echoing tunnels, their laughter bouncing off the walls. But when the sun dips below the horizon and darkness spills into the fort's empty corridors, the atmosphere changes. The air grows heavy, shadows deepen, and those who know its history whisper of spirits that still walk the passageways, bound to a duty they can never abandon. Fort Worden was a place of discipline and vigilance. Soldiers stationed here lived under strict routines, trained to respond at a moment's notice to any threat approaching from the sea. While the fort never saw battle, life here was not without hardship. Isolation weighed on men who spent long hours scanning the horizon for an enemy that never came. Accidents were inevitable: falls from the towering batteries, mishandled weapons, illnesses that swept through the barracks. Death came quietly but often, and for some, the fort became their final post. Today, visitors exploring the dark, twisting tunnels report unsettling experiences. It often begins with a sound soft at first, then growing louder. The unmistakable thud of heavy boots striking concrete, echoing through the darkness. Many have turned, expecting to see another tourist or a park ranger, only to find themselves completely alone. The footsteps continue, sometimes moving closer, other times fading away as if someone had slipped around a corner just out of sight. No matter how thoroughly the area is searched, no living soul is ever found. Some have seen more than shadows. Apparitions of soldiers in full uniform have been spotted standing guard in the doorways of the old batteries, their faces obscured by caps, their posture rigid with military precision. One frequently told story comes from a photographer who visited the fort at dusk. As he framed a shot of Battery Kinsey, he noticed a figure standing in the far tunnel, a man in an early 20th century uniform, motionless, watching. Thinking it was part of a reenactment, the photographer called out. The figure gave no response. When the photographer raised his camera, the figure turned and walked into the darkness, disappearing without a sound. No one else was on the grounds that evening. Electronic voice phenomena, or EVPs, have captured chilling fragments of sound within the fort's chambers. Words like halt, move out, and stand guard have been recorded by paranormal investigators, along with the low murmur of conversations in empty rooms. In the gun emplacements, cold spots bloom suddenly, the temperature dropping so sharply that breath becomes visible even on warm summer nights. Others have reported feeling a sudden pressure on their shoulders, as if an unseen sergeant were correcting their posture, or hearing the metallic clink of weapons being handled just beyond the range of sight. The tunnels themselves are the epicenter of activity. Long and narrow, they wind beneath the batteries like veins of darkness. The further you walk, the more the light fades, swallowed by the concrete walls. It is here that many claim to feel the presence, most strongly a sense of being watched, followed, even herded along by something unseen. Some visitors refuse to enter without a flashlight, and even then, the beam often flickers or dies unexpectedly, as if drained by some invisible force. In the silence, whispers slither along the walls, words too faint to understand but impossible to ignore. Not all the stories are rooted in vague sensations. There are those who swear they have seen the shadow soldier, the fort's most infamous apparition, described as a tall figure clad in dark military garb. He moves with purpose through the tunnels, his boots striking the ground in steady rhythm. Sometimes he is seen patrolling near the gun batteries, other times in the narrow halls below. Witnesses say he never speaks, never acknowledges their presence. His duty, it seems, is eternal, a soldier, guarding a fort that no longer needs protection. What binds these spirits to Fort Worden? Some believe it is loyalty, a devotion so fierce it transcends death. Others think it is tragedy, a sudden, violent end that left them trapped between worlds. Whatever the reason, one truth remains. The fort is not as empty as it appears. By day, the sun softens the edges of Fort Worden, and the echoes of history feel distant, almost benign. But as night falls and the sea wind sweeps through the crumbling passageways, the mood shifts, the air grows colder, and the silence becomes a living thing, broken only by the sound of unseen boots marching in the dark. For those who linger after sunset, the experience is unforgettably brushed with the past, so vivid it feels as though time itself has folded, and the soldiers of Fort Worden still walk among us, shadows bound to their posts, forever watching, forever waiting. The Georgetown morgue sits in Seattle like a grim sentinel, its very name enough to send chills down the spine. For decades, it served as a funeral home and crematorium, a place where the dead were prepared for their final rest. Countless bodies passed through its doors, and with them came an unspoken understanding. This was a house of sorrow, of endings, a threshold between life and whatever comes after. But the Georgetown morgue carries a darkness that goes far beyond its intended purpose. Darkness born of blood, mystery, and a tragedy that remains unsolved to this day. The building itself is unassuming from the outside, a squat structure of weathered brick and shadowed windows. But step closer and the air feels heavier, as though the walls themselves are steeped in death. The story begins in the mid-20th century, when the morgue operated at full capacity, handling the grim duties that come with a growing city. Behind its locked doors, workers embalmed bodies, arranged funerals, and oversaw cremations in the roaring furnace deep in the basement. It was a solemn job, one that required precision and respect. But in the 1960s, something happened within those walls that turned the Georgetown morgue from a place of business into a source of legend and terror. According to the tale passed down through hushed whispers, it was an ordinary night shift that became anything but. 9 employees were on duty, seasoned workers who had spent years in the business of death. They were responsible for preparing several bodies for cremation, a routine task they had performed countless times before. But sometime during those long hours, something went terribly wrong. When the morning crew arrived, the morgue was silent. The embalming tables stood empty. The offices were deserted. And the 9 night workers, gone. Not a trace of them remained. The police were called, and an investigation began. At first, authorities suspected foul play, perhaps a robbery gone wrong. But there was no sign of forced entry. No blood, no struggle. Nothing to suggest violence. The only odd detail lay in the crematorium furnace. It had burned hotter and longer than usual that night, so much so that the metal door was warped from the heat. Investigators speculated that perhaps the missing workers had been disposed of, their bodies reduced to ash. But if that was the case, who had done it, and why? No answers ever came. No bodies were found. The case went cold, leaving only questions and a lingering sense of unease that has never faded. Over the years, the story took on a life of its own. Some say the 9 workers were victims of a deranged killer who knew the morgue's secrets. Others whisper of something more sinister, ritual, perhaps, or an attempt to cover up a dark experiment. Whatever the truth, one thing is certain. The Georgetown morgue was never the same after that night. The business eventually closed, and the building stood abandoned for years. Its windows boarded, its halls silent. But silence does not mean emptiness. Those who ventured inside during its deserted years tell of encounters that defy explanation. It begins with sounds soft at first, then unmistakable. The clatter of metal instruments on tile. The hum of machinery long disconnected from power. Voices murmuring in low tones, as if workers are still going about their grim tasks. And then come the footsteps, echoing through the corridors, when no one else is there. Heavy, deliberate steps, like boots on linoleum, pacing back and forth, searching for something or someone. Some claim to have seen shadows flickering at the edge of their vision, figures that vanish when the light catches them. Others speak of a more terrifying sight, full-bodied apparitions of men in work coats, their faces pale and hollow-eyed, moving silently through the building as if bound to their unfinished duties. One story tells of a man exploring the morgue with a group of friends. He strayed from the others and found himself near the furnace room. The door stood ajar, and from within came an orange glow, as though the furnace still burned. Curious, he stepped closer only to see a figure standing in front of the roaring flames. Motionless, its head slowly turning toward him. He fled, and when he returned with the others, the room was dark and cold, the furnace door sealed tight. The basement, where the furnace still rests, is said to be the heart of the haunting. Paranormal investigators have recorded temperature drops so sudden they leave breath hanging in the air. EMF detectors spike wildly, and EVPs have captured chilling fragments. Help us, it burns, we're still here. Some visitors report the sensation of being pushed or grabbed, as though unseen hands are trying to drag them toward the furnace. Others hear screams faint at first, then rising in intensity until they echo like the cries of souls in torment. Even those who don't believe in ghosts admit that the building exudes something unnatural. The air inside feels charged, heavy with a presence that watches from the shadows. Doors slam without warning. Lights flicker, even though the wiring was stripped out years ago. And always, there is that smell in acrid temps of smoke and something else, something that clings to the back of the throat like burnt flesh. Today, the Georgetown morgue stands as a macabre landmark. Its name alone enough to draw thrill-seekers and ghost hunters. By day, it might seem like nothing more than an old building with a grim history. But when night falls and darkness seeps through the cracks, the truth becomes harder to ignore. Whatever happened in the 1960s left a mark that cannot be erased, a wound that festers in the silence. Calling out to those who dare to listen. 9 lives vanished without explanation. No bodies, no answers. Just whispers in the dark and the lingering heat of a fire that may never truly have gone out. If you find yourself near the Georgetown morgue after sundown, take heed, listen closely, and you might hear the sound of boots on the floor, the hiss of flames, and the faint, desperate voices of those who were never meant to leave. Lake Crescent shimmers like a sapphire nestled deep in Washington's Olympic Peninsula. Its waters, a haunting shade of blue-green, stretch quietly beneath towering evergreens and rugged mountains. To the casual visitor, it is a place of breathtaking beauty, a jewel of the wilderness where the air smells of pine and the world feels untouched by time. But for those who know its history, the lake's beauty masks something far darker, curse that has claimed countless lives and swallowed its secrets whole. The first thing to understand about Lake Crescent is its depth. Plunging to more than 600 feet in places, it is one of the deepest lakes in the Pacific Northwest. Scientists say its extraordinary clarity and unique chemical composition prevent the usual processes of decay. In these waters, things change, or rather, they stop changing. Organic matter does not rot as it would elsewhere. It preserves. This unsettling fact lies at the heart of one of the lake's most infamous legends, the Lady of the Lake. The story dates back to the late 1930s, when a young woman named Hallie Illingworth vanished without a trace. She was a waitress at a local lodge, married to a man with a violent temper. When she disappeared just before Christmas, her husband claimed she had left him, and in time, people believed it. But 3 years later, the lake gave up its secret. A fisherman spotted something floating on the surface, a body, but unlike any corpse anyone had ever seen. The woman's remains had turned into a waxy, soap-like substance called a deposier, her features eerily preserved by the lake's chemical makeup. It was Hallie. Her husband was later convicted of her murder, but the story cemented Lake Crescent's reputation as a watery tomb that does not easily give up its dead. Hallie's story is only one among many. Over the years, countless others have vanished into the lake's cold depths. Boaters, swimmers, fishermen, some disappeared in broad daylight, their cries for help swallowed by the wind. Others went missing without a sound, their boats later found drifting empty under a gray sky. The strangest part, bodies rarely resurface. In most lakes, drowned victims rise to the surface as gases from decomposition build up, but not here. The same chemistry that preserved Hallie keeps most victims pinned to the bottom forever. Families wait in agony for closure that never comes, staring out across those glassy waters, knowing their loved ones are down there, frozen in the deep. Local lore says the lake is cursed, a place where restless spirits pull the living down to join them. The tribes who once lived in this region believed the lake was formed by a violent act of the gods, and they spoke of spirits inhabiting its waters. Some say they hear voices on the wind near the shoreline, soft, urgent whispers calling their names. Others have reported strange lights dancing over the surface on moonless nights, like lanterns carried by unseen hands. Whether these tales are superstition or something more, the feeling of unease is real. Spend enough time alone by Lake Crescent, and you'll understand why so many believe something watches from below. Divers who have explored the lake describe an otherworldly silence beneath the surface, a darkness so complete it feels alive. Their lights cut narrow paths through the water, illuminating fallen trees, sheer cliffs of rock, and nothing else. No fish, no movement, just an endless blue void. Some divers refuse to return, unsettled by the sensation of being followed in the depths, as if unseen eyes peer out from the darkness. A few claim they've brushed against things that shouldn't be there, smooth shapes that feel disturbingly like human limbs. But when they turn their lights, there's nothing but silt drifting in the current. And then there are the disappearances on land. Hikers have gone missing from trails near the lake, their gear later found abandoned, as if they walked willingly into the water. Campers wake in the dead of night to the sound of splashing, only to find the shoreline empty when they investigate. One story tells of a couple who stayed at a cabin near the lake in the 1950s. Late one night, they heard knocking on the door, 3 sharp raps, then silence. When they opened it, no one was there. Minutes later, the knocking came again, this time on the back door. The couple fled into the night, driving away without ever looking back. Scientists offer logical explanations for some of the lake's mysteries. Sudden storms can overturn small boats. The lake's frigid temperatures and mineral-rich waters preserve bodies instead of allowing them to bloat and rise. But logic does little to ease the chill that creeps in when you stand at the edge of Lake Crescent at dusk, watching the last light bleed across the surface. The water looks calm, but beneath that calm lies a darkness that does not forgive and does not forget. Today, Lake Crescent draws visitors from around the world. They come for the hiking trails, the lodges, the sparkling waters that mirror the sky. They take photographs, paddle canoes, and skip stones across its glassy surface, never knowing what might be stirring far below. But those who live nearby know better. They speak in hushed tones of the lake's hunger, of the way it keeps what it takes. They warn their children not to swim too far, not to stay out on the water after dark, because at Lake Crescent, beauty is a lure, and beneath that stunning surface lies silence, depth, and death. Boats drift empty, Voices call from nowhere. And if you stare too long into those blue-green waters, you might feel at the pull of the deep, the weight of unseen hands, and the certainty that once you go down, you will never, ever come back. The Mount Baker Theater stands proudly in downtown Bellingham, its grand marquee and ornate architecture, recalling a time when movie palaces were temples of glamour and escape. Built in 1927, it was a beacon of entertainment during the golden age of cinema, dazzling audiences with silent films, vaudeville acts, and later, the booming sounds of talkies. For nearly a century, it has remained a beloved cultural landmark, drawing crowds for performances that range from Broadway shows to concerts. But beneath its gilded beauty and bright lights, the theater harbors a shadow of presence that has lingered in its halls for decades. Those who work here know its name, Django. Django is not your ordinary ghost story, whispered to scare newcomers. He is a constant, unpredictable presence, woven into the fabric of the theater itself. Employees talk about him as if he were a troublesome coworker or prankster with a streak of cruelty. At first, his antics seem harmless. Props go missing, only to turn up in odd places. Lights flicker during rehearsals, sending technicians scrambling to check circuits that show no faults. Doors lock on their own, trapping actors in dressing rooms for minutes or hours, even though the keys sit untouched on a hook nearby. But sometimes, Django's tricks take a darker turn. Actors have reported feeling watched as they run lines on the empty stage, an unseen gaze prickling the back of their necks. Whispers drift through the air in the stillness, too soft to make out, yet impossible to ignore. And then there was the actress, the one whose story still makes seasoned performers shudder. It happened late one night during rehearsal for a demanding play. The theater was nearly empty, save for a few stagehands and the actress practicing her lines under the glow of a single spotlight. She was in the middle of a monologue when she felt it. A pair of hands wrapping firmly around her throat. The stage was empty. The darkness beyond the footlights stretched endlessly, silent and watching. Gasping for air, she stumbled off stage and refused to finish rehearsal that night. She never returned. The story spread quickly, adding to the theater's reputation as a place where the dead mingle freely with the living. Paranormal investigators have flocked to Mount Baker Theater, drawn by reports of unexplained phenomena. They come with their cameras, their recorders, their meters, and most leave with more questions than answers. Electronic voice phenomena, captured in the wings, have revealed chilling fragments. A low chuckle, a muttered phrase, the sound of footsteps pacing the stage when it stood empty. In one recording, a deep voice utters a single word. Mine. Who or what does? Django. No one knows for sure. Some believe he was a stagehand who died during the theater's early years, perhaps crushed by scenery or electrocuted by faulty wiring. Others think he was an actor whose dreams of stardom ended in tragedy. There are even whispers of something older, something that predates the theater itself, a presence tied to the land, awakened by the glamour and energy of the crowds. Whatever his origin, Django is no fleeting apparition. He is a force, unpredictable and volatile, capable of moving objects, manipulating electricity, and, as the actress discovered, making physical contact. Sightings of Django often described him as a tall figure, cloaked in shadow, lurking near the stage or in the upper balcony. Some claim to see him darting through the wings, his movements swift and soundless. Others glimpse him standing perfectly still in the glow of the work lights, watching with an intensity that chills the blood. When approached, he vanishes without a trace, leaving only the echo of footsteps and a lingering sense of dread. The balcony, in particular, is said to be his domain. Ushers report seeing figures seated in the dark rows long after the audience has gone. When they approach, the seats are empty. Cold drafts sweep through the aisles, and a faint scent of cigar smoke drifts on the air, though smoking has been banned for decades. One custodian tells of hearing laughter behind him as he swept the lobby at 3 a.m., a deep, mocking laugh that rolled through the empty theater. When he turned, heart pounding, there was no one there. Despite its haunted reputation, the Mount Baker Theater thrives as a hub of culture and entertainment. Its ornate plasterwork gleams under the chandeliers, and its stage continues to host world-class performances. But those who work behind the scenes know better than to dismiss the stories. They learn the rules quickly. Never whistle backstage, never call Django's name aloud, and never, ever stay alone in the theater after midnight. Those who ignore these warnings often regret it. Visitors sometimes sense the presence without knowing the legend. They feel a brush of cold air on a warm day, hear a door slam in the distance, or catch a glimpse of movement high in the rafters where no one should be. Some leave amused, chalking it up to imagination. Others leave shaken, certain they've encountered something they can't explain. As night falls over Bellingham and the marquee lights flicker to life, the Mount Baker Theater comes alive with music, laughter, and applause. But in the quiet moments between the lines of a play, in the breathless pause before a curtain rises, Django lingers, watching from the shadows. His domain is not the spotlight but the darkness beyond it, where he moves unseen, a restless spirit tethered to the grandeur of a bygone age. And if you ever find yourself alone in that magnificent theater, standing on the silent stage beneath the ghostly glow of the chandeliers, listen closely. You might hear the soft creak of a seat in the balcony, the flicker of lights above the wings, and the faint sound of laughter low, cruel, and echoing through the empty house. Old City Hall looms over Tacoma like a relic from another era, its Italian Renaissance architecture striking against the modern skyline. Built in 1893, it was once the heart of the city's government, a place of power, law, and order. For decades, its grand clock tower watched over the streets below, a symbol of civic pride. But behind its elegant facade, this building holds stories steeped in suffering, corruption, and death. Stories that, according to many, refuse to stay buried. When Old City Hall first opened its doors, it was a marvel of design. Marble floors gleamed in the sunlight streaming through arched windows, and ornate staircases curved upward toward offices where the city's leaders made decisions that shaped Tacoma's future. But as the decades passed, the building's purpose shifted. It became more than just a seat of government. It housed a courthouse, police headquarters, and a jail deep in the basement. Down there, in the damp and airless cells, men and women awaited judgment, their fates sealed by iron bars and indifferent walls. It was a place of despair, and over time, despair gave way to death. The jail saw everything from petty thieves to hardened criminals, and not all of them left alive. Some were executed for their crimes. Others died by their own hand, fashioning nooses from sheets or belts in a desperate bid to escape justice. There are whispers that a few deaths were neither accidental nor self-inflicted, but rather the result of brutality in the shadows, guards settling scores, prisoners silenced before they could speak. Whatever the truth, the basement became a tomb of secrets, its walls absorbing every scream, every plea, every last breath. When the building eventually closed as a government center, the cells were abandoned, left to rust in darkness. But emptiness does not mean peace. Today, those who venture into Old City Hall speak of a presence that lingers, a restless energy that coils in the shadows of its long corridors and forgotten chambers. It begins with small things, a cold draft where there should be none, the sound of footsteps echoing on the marble floors when the building is empty. Doors creak open and slam shut without warning. Lights flicker in the tower at night, though the power is cut. Security guards have reported voices drifting from the basement, low murmurs at first, then louder, as if a heated argument rages just beyond the walls. When they investigate, the cells stand silent, cloaked in darkness, their rusted bars gaping like the teeth of a long-dead beast. Those who spend time in the basement describe an oppressive atmosphere, thick with something unseen. Some feel an icy hand brush against their skin. Others hear the rattle of chains or the distant clang of a cell door slamming shut. The most chilling accounts come from those who claim to have seen figures moving in the gloom, shapes that flicker at the edge of vision, sometimes solidifying into forms draped in rags, their faces twisted with anguish or rage. One former caretaker tells of walking the cell block late one night, only to glimpse a man standing in the far corner, his eyes glowing faintly in the dark. When the caretaker approached, The figure melted into shadow, leaving behind only the stench of something rotten. But the basement is not the only place where the dead refuse to rest. The upper floors have their own share of activity. Offices that once buzzed with clerks now echo with phantom sounds. Typewriters clacking, telephones ringing, the low drone of voices from a century past. In the Grand Council chambers, chairs scrape across the floor by themselves, and the ghostly hum of conversation fills the air, as if meetings, long adjourned, continue in some spectral realm. One night, a security guard patrolling the main hall heard laughter, a deep, mocking laugh rolling down the staircase. When he reached the landing, the laughter stopped, replaced by silence so heavy it pressed against his ears. Then there is the clock tower, rising above the city like a sentinel. At night, some claim to see a figure pacing behind the windows of the upper leveler, tall man in a dark suit, his hands clasped behind his back. Others have spotted him staring down at the streets, his face obscured by shadow. Is he a former mayor, bound forever to the seat of his power? Or perhaps a condemned prisoner, seeking vengeance from on high? No one knows, but those who have seen him say the memory never fades. Paranormal investigators have flocked to Old City Hall, drawn by its reputation as one of Tacoma's most haunted landmarks. Their recordings capture disembodied voices' pleas for help, angry curses, and once, a chilling command: get out. Equipment malfunctions without explanation. Batteries drain in seconds. In the basement, EMF meters spike wildly, and cameras pick up orbs of light that dart through the blackness like sparks from an unseen fire. Some investigators leave convinced the building teems with spirits. Others leave shaken, unwilling to speak of what they encountered. Today, Old City Hall stands in a strange limbo. Plans have been made to restore it, to breathe new life into its aging bones. But even polished marble and fresh paint cannot erase its past. Those who walk its halls at night feel it a weight pressing down, as if hundreds of eyes watch from the shadows. They say the dead here are not at peace. They have stories to tell, injustices to avenge, and perhaps a hunger for company in their endless midnight. If you ever find yourself near the tower after dark, glance up at the glowing clock face. You might see movement behind the glass, a flicker of motion where no one should be, or you might hear it, the echo of footsteps on marble, the rattle of chains from below, and a voice whispering from the depths, reminding you that Old City Hall is not empty. It never has been, and for those who linger too long, it never will be. Just beyond the decaying ruins of Northern State Hospital, past the rusting fences and the silent, moss-covered buildings, lies a field that seems peaceful at first glance. Wild grasses sway in the breeze, and birds perch on crooked fence posts. But as you step closer, the truth reveals itself. This is no ordinary meadow. This is the Northern State Hospital Cemetery, the final resting place for thousands of souls who lived and died within the walls of Washington's largest psychiatric institution. Here, the forgotten are buried, their names erased by time, their lives reduced to numbers etched into small, weathered markers. Northern State Hospital opened in 1912 as a sprawling mental health facility designed to house those deemed unfit for society. It promised humane treatment and healing. But behind its doors lurked a grim reality of overcrowding, neglect, and in many cases, outright abuse. Over the decades, thousands of patients passed through its wards, some suffering from mental illness, others committed for reasons that would seem unthinkable today. Many never left. They died in isolation, far from family and friends, their bodies claimed by no one. For them, the hospital cemetery became home. Walk among the graves, and you'll notice their stark simplicity. No ornate headstones, no names carved into marble. Just small concrete blocks, each bearing a single number. That number was all the world allowed them in death. Some markers have sunk into the earth, barely visible beneath the moss. Others tilt at odd angles, as if struggling to rise from the soil. Together, they form a silent, solemn testimony to lives lost and lives forgotten. The ground here holds stories that will never be told. Men and women who arrive at Northern State with hopes of healing, only to meet their end in sterile wards. Patients who endured harsh treatments of the air ice baths, electroshock therapy, lobotomies, In the worst years, when resources were scarce and staff overwhelmed, neglect was rampant. Malnutrition, disease, and despair claimed countless lives. Those who died without family, willing or able to claim their remains, were buried here in rows that stretched beyond sight. The exact number is uncertain, but estimates suggest more than 1,500 souls rest in this field. And yet, this is no quiet graveyard. Visitors speak of a heaviness that settles over the place, a weight that presses against the chest. The wind seems to whisper through the grass, carrying fragments of voices' soft cries, muffled sobs, the distant echo of names long forgotten. Paranormal investigators who have ventured into the cemetery report unsettling experiences. EMF meters spike without explanation. Cameras capture strange orbs and misty shapes drifting between the rows of markers. Some have recorded whispers on their audio equipment pleas for help, or simply the word, remember. Others have felt the presence in more tangible ways. Cold spots bloom suddenly on warm days, icy tendrils curling around ankles and wrists. Visitors describe the sensation of unseen hands brushing against their clothing, or the feeling of being watched by dozens of unseen eyes. One woman, who came to pay her respects, swears she felt a gentle tug at her sleeve, as if someone were trying to hold her back from leaving. When she turned, there was no one there, but the imprint of fingers remained, faint and chilling. Night brings an even deeper sense of unease. Under the pale glow of the moon, the markers gleam like teeth in the grass, and the air hums with something unseen. Those brave or foolish enough to visit after dark report strange lights flickering among the graves, darting here and there like fireflies made of cold blue flame. Others hear footsteps crunching in the grass behind them, only to spin around and find emptiness. Disembodied voices call out from the shadows, sometimes clear, sometimes distant and distorted, as if carried across decades. A few claim to have seen figures moving through the cemetery, thin wavering shapes dressed in the faded garments of another era, faces pale and hollow-eyed. They never speak, they only watch. Who are these spirits that linger in the cemetery? Some believe they are patients seeking the recognition they were denied in life. Buried without ceremony, stripped of their names, they remain bound to this place, yearning for acknowledgement. Others suggest something darker, that the anguish and suffering experienced at Northern State left a scar on the land itself, a wound that never healed. Whatever the truth, one thing is certain. This field of numbered stones holds more than bones and earth. It holds stories, secrets, and an energy that refuses to fade. Today, efforts have been made to honor those who rest here. Volunteers have worked to clear the overgrowth and mark the graves, striving to restore dignity to the forgotten. Memorial plaques list some of the names that were lost to time, a small gesture to give identity back to those reduced to numbers. Yet the sense of sorrow remains, woven into the soil, lingering in the air like a whisper. Stand among the graves at dusk, and you'll feel it, that presence, that quiet insistence that you are not alone. The grass rustles, though the wind is still. Shadows stretch long and strange across the ground, and if you listen closely, you might hear it. A voice carried on the breeze, soft and fragile, speaking from the depths of memory. A single word, heavy with longing. Remember. In the end, the Northern State Hospital Cemetery is more than a burial ground. It is a testament to lives overlooked, a reminder of the pain hidden behind the walls of institutions, and a place where the dead still reach out, not in anger, but in yearning. They do not want vengeance. They want to be seen. They want to be remembered. And perhaps, as you walk away through the silent field, you'll carry a part of them with you, a whisper in the heart, a chill on the skin, and the haunting certainty that they are still there, watching, waiting, and hoping that someone will finally speak their names. Kel's Irish Pub in Seattle is known for its lively, atmospheric, linking glasses, laughter, and the sound of traditional Irish music spilling into the night. But beneath the warm glow of its lights and the cheerful chatter of patrons lies a history steeped in death. The pub occupies the basement of the Butterworth Building, Seattle's first funeral parlor, and the spirits of its past have never truly left. When the Butterworth Building opened in 1903, It was considered a marvel of its time, designed to be the city's most modern and efficient mortuary. It handled the growing demands of a booming metropolis. The upper floors housed showrooms for caskets and mourning clothes, while the basement, the very space where Kells now sits, was where the real work happened. Bodies were delivered through a discreet entrance, rolled into preparation rooms, and embalmed on cold metal tables. In those dimly lit chambers, the dead were ready for their final journey. For decades, the Butterworth mortuary saw an endless procession of the departed. During the early 1900s, when disease outbreaks swept through Seattle, bodies arrived by the dozens. Workers toiled late into the night under the harsh glare of gas lamps, their hands slick with chemicals and the chill of the grave. It was quiet work, solemn work, but it left its mark on the building in ways no one could have foreseen. Eventually, the mortuary closed, and the Butterworth building was repurposed. Shops and offices took over the upper floors, while the basement lay dormant for years, its history hidden beneath layers of dust. Then Kells moved in, transforming the space into a pub filled with laughter, music, and life. But some say the dead never got the message. From the very beginning, strange things began to happen, things no amount of Guinness could explain. Bartenders were the first to notice. Late at night, after the last customer had gone and the doors were locked, they would hear it, the faint sound of footsteps crossing the floor above, when no one else was in the building. At first, they blamed creaking wood and settling pipes until the footsteps began descending the stairs into the bar. Lights flickered, glasses shattered on their own, and cold drafts swept through the room, even with the doors sealed tight. One bartender swears he saw a figure in the mirror behind the bar, a tall man in a black suit, his face pale and eyes hollow. When he turned, the man was gone. As the years passed, the stories grew. Patrons reported seeing shadows glide across the walls, or catching glimpses of someone sitting in the far corner, only to find the table empty moments later. The most common sighting is of a young girl, no more than 6 or 7 years old, with dark hair and a white dress. She's been seen darting between tables, her laughter ringing softly in the air. Some say she tugs at coats or brushes against arms before vanishing into thin air. Who she was in life, no one knows. Perhaps the child of a family who once mourned above, or maybe a victim of the many tragedies that passed through the mortuary doors. But the activity isn't limited to fleeting shadows and cold chills. Some encounters have been far more unsettling. Musicians playing late-night sets have reported their instruments going out of tune without reason, strings snapping mid-song as if plucked by unseen fingers. A waitress once claimed that, as she carried a tray of drinks to a table, an icy hand clamped around her wrist so hard she dropped everything. When she looked down, faint bruises were already forming. Others have heard whispers in the darkness, soft voices, speaking in tones too low to make out, sometimes punctuated by laughter that has no warmth in it at all. Paranormal investigators have flocked to Kells over the years, drawn by its reputation as one of Seattle's most haunted spots. Their equipment picks up anomalies they can't explain. Sudden temperature drops, EMF spikes, and disembodied voices captured on recorders. One chilling EVP seems to say, "We're still here." Another, recorded in the basement near what was once an embalming room, whispers, "Get out." And then there are the photos, blurry but unmistakable images of figures where no one stood, faces peering from behind pillars or reflected in windows long after closing time. Even skeptics admit there's something about Kells that feels different. Maybe it's the weight of history. The knowledge that countless bodies once lay where the tables now stand. Maybe it's the building itself, its bones steeped in grief and silence. Or maybe it's something more, a lingering energy born of sorrow, ritual, and death. Whatever the reason, the spirits of the Butterworth building seem unwilling to fade, their presence woven into the very fabric of the place. Today, Kells embraces its haunted reputation. Ghost tours stop by, and staff share stories with a mix of humor and unease. Regulars raise their glasses to the ghosts, toasting those who will never drink again. But beneath the laughter and music, the shadows remain. Watch closely, and you might see a flicker of movement in the corner of your eye, Feel the sudden chill that makes your breath fog in the air. Hear the faint scrape of a chair shifting on the floor when no one touched it. And if you linger after closing time, when the music fades and the lights dim, listen closely. You might hear the echo of footsteps in the dark, the soft murmur of voices from another century, and the whisper of something cold brushing past your ear. Because Kells may be a place of life and celebration, now but in its walls, in its floors, and in the silent corners of its basement, the dead are still waiting, and they are not ready to let go. In the quiet town of Republic, Washington, stands the Prospectors Theater, a surviving relic from the days when gold fever swept through the Pacific Northwest. Built in the late 1800s, when miners filled the streets and saloons pulsed with life, this modest theater was a cultural jewel in a rugged frontier town. It offered a taste of refinement amid the chaos vaudeville shows, silent films, and musical performances for men who spent their days clawing riches from the earth. But the gold is long gone now, and the crowds that once filled its seats have vanished into history. All that remains is the theater itself, and something else, something that refuses to leave. From the outside, the Prospectors Theater looks like a page torn from an old photograph, weathered wood siding, faded paint, and a marquee that no longer glows with neon light, but whispers of better days. The balcony still curves gracefully over the main floor, and the stage, though worn, holds a certain elegance, as if longing for an encore. During the day, the building feels quiet, almost serene, but when night falls, that silence turns heavy. It presses in like a curtain, and if you listen closely, you'll realize it isn't silence at all. There are sounds of creak on the balcony, the faint rustle of fabric, and, sometimes, the soft echo of applause when the room is empty. Actors who perform here speak of it in hushed tones. At first, they laugh off the stories told by the locals, that the Prospector S is haunted by spirits of the past, forever yearning for the spotlight. But the laughter fades the first time they hear it, clapping, soft and deliberate, rolling through the empty seats as if an unseen audience approves of their performance. It happens most often during late-night rehearsals, when only a handful of people remain. The sound begins faint, like distant rain, then swells, filling the theater with a ghostly ovation. When the actors stop, the applause stops. When they call out, there is no answer, only the hollow stillness of the room, broken by their own quickened breath. Then there are the shadows. More than one performer has glimpsed a figure gliding along the balcony, a silhouette moving with purpose, yet never making a sound. Sometimes it leans forward, as though watching intently, before vanishing into the darkness. Others have seen shapes darting between the rows, flickers of motion caught at the edge of vision. One actress, alone on stage, after rehearsal, swears she saw a man in a dark suit and bowler hat, standing in the back of the house, his posture stiff, his face obscured by shadow. When she blinked, he was gone. She left the building without collecting her things and refused to return for days. The stories don't end there. Strange cold spots bloom in the theater without explanation, pockets of icy air that chill the bones, even when the heating system hums steadily. Costumes left neatly on hangers are found crumpled on the floor, or arranged in odd, deliberate patterns, as though someone or something was playing dress-up. Stage props vanish, only to reappear hours later in locked rooms. And then there are the voices, whispers that slither through the wings, murmuring words no one can quite make out. Some describe it as laughter, others as fragments of old lines, as if the spirits themselves are rehearsing for a show that never ends. Who are these lingering presences? Theories abound. Some believe they are former actors, devoted to their craft, even in death, unwilling to abandon the stage they loved. Others think they are miners, rough men who sought solace in the theater's flickering lights and velvet seats, returning now as shadows to relive a joy long lost. A few whisper of tragedies that a performer once died here, perhaps during a show, collapsing under the weight of an unforgiving spotlight. No one knows for certain, and the archives offer no clear answers. But the energy in the Prospectors Theater feels old, tied to a time when hope, greed, and desperation filled these walls. Paranormal investigators have tried to unravel the mystery. They bring their recorders and cameras, their meters and sensors, and often leave with evidence that defies explanation. EVPs capture phantom applause and disembodied voices, snippets of song from an era long past. One chilling recording features a man's voice saying, "Encore." Another, captured near the wings, whispers, "Places." Investigators have also reported seeing orbs of light streaking across the stage, and once, a full-bodied apparition seated in the balcony, watching silently as if awaiting the rise of the curtain. Even skeptics admit that the theater feels different. There's a weight in the air, a sense of being observed. Patrons at modern-day events have reported sudden shivers, the sensation of fingers brushing their shoulders, or the eerie certainty that someone is sitting beside them in an otherwise empty row. A few leave at intermission and never return, shaken by something they can't name. Despite it all, the Prospectors Theater endures. It still hosts plays and community events. Its stage alive with actors who tell stories for an audience, seen and unseen. Some performers claim they draw strength from the presence, feeling a surge of energy as if the spirits themselves are applauding from the shadows. Others dread the final bow, knowing that when the lights go out and the crowd departs, the true audience remains silent, waiting, watching. If you ever find yourself in Republic, step inside the Prospectors Theater, sit quietly in the hushed glow of the stage lights, and listen. You might hear the faint creak of a balcony seat, the whisper of fabric brushing against wood, and then, soft but unmistakable, the sound of hands coming together in perfect rhythm. Applause, rising from an audience that isn't there. And if you glance toward the balcony, don't be surprised if you see a figure standing in the shadows, bowler hat tipped low, gazing down at the stage with empty eyes that shine like the memory of a dream. The old Bremerton Naval Hospital stands like a ghost on the hill, its hollow windows staring out over the city as if keeping watch long after its time has passed. Built during World War II, this sprawling complex was once a lifeline for thousands of soldiers wounded in the Pacific Theater. Men came here broken and bleeding, clinging to life after horrors few could imagine. Some walked out, healed, ready to face the world again. Others never left, their final moments spent beneath the harsh glare of surgical lamps, their last breath mingling with the smell of antiseptic and blood. When the hospital opened, it was a place of urgency and sacrifice. Doctors and nurses worked tirelessly in crowded wards, their hands raw from scrubbing, their nerves frayed by the endless tide of suffering. Ambulances arrived day and night, bearing men whose bodies had been shattered by bullets, bombs, and fire. The corridors echoed with groans, whispered prayers, and the clipped voices of surgeons barking orders. Some patients endured experimental treatments, desperate measures born of wartime necessity. Many survived because of these efforts. Many others didn't. Death became a constant companion here, stalking the halls as relentlessly as any soldier on a battlefield. There were rooms where lives ended every hour, where the sheets were never warm for long before another body took their place. In the morgue below, drawers filled and emptied in a grim cycle, each name tagged and recorded, each face soon to be forgotten. For all the lives saved, the hospital also became a repository of pain, fear, and grief, a weight that seeped into its walls and never left. After the war, the hospital continued to serve for years, treating veterans and civilians alike. But eventually, its time passed. New facilities rose, and the old Naval Hospital was shuttered, its windows boarded and its doors locked. Decades of silence followed, but silence doesn't always mean peace. The building may be abandoned, but those who enter swear it is far from empty. Urban explorers are drawn to the place, lured by its decaying grandeur and its dark history. They pick their way through shattered glass and peeling paint, their flashlights cutting narrow paths through the gloom. What they find keeps them coming back. Core sends them running for good. It starts with the sounds. Faint at first, almost imagined. The soft squeak of gurney wheels echoing down a distant hallway. The metallic clang of a dropped instrument, a voice murmuring in a language you can't quite place. Then come the footsteps, measured, heavy, the cadence unmistakable. Boots striking the linoleum in perfect rhythm, as if a patrol still makes its rounds long after the war has ended. When explorers follow the sound, they find nothing but empty halls stretching into darkness. Lights are another mystery. Even with the power long cut, pale glows flicker behind broken doors, swelling and fading like heartbeats. Some claim to have seen entire rooms bathed in a sterile white light, surgical lamps blazing as if an operation were underway. But when they step inside, the room lies in ruins, the only brightness the thin shaft of a flashlight beam trembling in their hand. And then there are the apparitions. Reports vary, but the stories share common threads. A nurse in a starched white uniform gliding silently through the corridor, her face a blur of sorrow. A young sailor standing at the end of a hall, his chest dark with blood, his eyes pleading for help that will never come. In one chilling account, an explorer turned a corner and came face to face with a doctor in a green surgical gown, his hands dripping crimson. The man opened his mouth as if to speak, but before a sound emerged, he vanished, leaving only the metallic temps of blood on the air. The morgue is the epicenter of the unease. Those who descend into its clammy depths often come back pale, shaken, their voices low with disbelief. Down there, in the bowels of the building, the air feels thicker, heavier, as if soaked in decades of despair. Some hear banging from within the empty drawers. Others swear they've seen fingers curling around the edges, pale and stiff, before slipping out of sight. Once, a group of investigators captured an EVP that made their blood run cold. It was a man's voice, raspy and urgent, repeating a single word, cold. Paranormal researchers have flocked to the hospital, and their findings only deepen the mystery. Equipment malfunctions without reason. Batteries drain in minutes. Motion sensors trip when no one moves. Infrared cameras capture heat signatures in rooms that should be lifeless. In one case, a thermal image revealed a figure standing in a doorway, its outline sharp and distinct until it simply disappeared. What lingers here? Some believe it's the souls of those who died in agony, tethered to the place of their final breath. Others think it's the echo of trauma, a psychic imprint burned so deeply into the fabric of the building that it replays endlessly. There are even whispers of something darker, entity born of pain and fear, feeding on the energy of those who dared to enter. Whatever the truth, the old Bremerton Naval Hospital holds its secrets close, bound in shadow and silence. Today, the building remains a hollow shell, its walls cracked, its windows shattered, but its presence undeniable. Stand outside on a moonlit night, and you might hear it, the faint rhythm of boots striking the floor in a march that never ends. Step inside, and you may feel the temperature plunge. The air thick with the scent of antiseptic, and something far more pungent, the coppery ghost of blood. And if you listen closely, past the drip of water and the creak of the settling walls, you might hear a voice, distant but clear, calling from the darkness. A voice that says, "Help me." Hotel Andre, standing proudly in downtown Seattle, is a place of refined elegance and modern charm. Guests come for the stylish rooms, the sophisticated atmosphere, and the echoes of old-world glamour. But behind its polished facade lies a history steeped in tragedy. History that whispers through the walls long after the lights go out. This building wasn't always the chic boutique hotel it is today. When it first opened in the early 20th century as the Claremont Hotel, it catered to travelers and boarders seeking comfort in the growing city. Seattle was booming then, alive with opportunity, and the Claremont promised a touch of refinement in an era of change. Its lobby gleamed with polished wood and brass fixtures, and its rooms, though modest by today's standards, offered warmth and respite from the rain-soaked streets. For many, it was a temporary haven, but for some, it became their final stop. The tragedies began quietly. A woman was found dead in her room, an apparent suicide after receiving word her husband had perished at sea. Not long after, a man Falor was pushed from a fourth-floor window, his body broken on the pavement below. Police ruled it an accident, but whispers among the boarders told another story. Then came the disappearances, guests who checked in but never checked out. Their rooms were left in eerie stillness, belongings neatly arranged, as though they intended to return. They never did. As the years passed, the Claremont's reputation darkened. People spoke of bad luck, of a shadow hanging over the place. But the building endured, changing hands and names, its history fading beneath layers of renovation. Today, as Hotel Andre, it wears the mask of sophistication, but those who stay within its walls sometimes feel that the past has not truly let go. Guests report strange happenings, often in the quiet hours of the night. Doors that were locked swing open without a sound. Faucets turn themselves on, water gushing into pristine sinks. Lights flicker violently, then die, plunging rooms into darkness, before flaring back to life. Some awaken to the sensation of being watched, eyes boring into them from the shadows, though no one is there. Others hear it. The faint creak of footsteps pacing the hallway, slow and deliberate, long after midnight. When they peer into the corridor, it lies empty, stretching into silence. The most unsettling encounters occur in the upper floors, where the boarding rooms once stood. In room 708, guests have reported waking to find a woman standing at the foot of the bed. She wears a long, dark dress, her hair pulled back severely, and her ice-cold hollow eyes fix on the living with a gaze that seems to pierce the soul. She never speaks. She simply stands, watching, until the guest blinks or turns away then she is gone. Housekeepers dread this room, claiming they feel an oppressive weight pressing on their chest as they work, as if the air itself grows heavy with sorrow. Another spirit is said to haunt the elevator. Guests stepping inside sometimes find the temperature dropping sharply, their breath fogging in the air. The elevator stops on the wrong floor, its doors sliding open to reveal an empty hallway that smells faintly of old perfume and cigarette smoke, a scent that does not belong to the modern hotel. On rare occasions, people report catching a glimpse of a man in a bowler hat reflected in the elevator's mirrored wall. He tips his hat politely before fading into nothingness. The lobby, too, holds secrets. Staff members closing up for the night have heard music drifting from nowhere. The soft strains of a piano playing an old melody, mournful and sweet. Yet the lobby is empty, the instruments long gone. Security cameras have captured flickering shapes, pale and translucent, gliding across the marble floor. Once, a night clerk swore he saw a figure seated in the corner, reading a newspaper. When he looked again, the chair was empty, the newspaper neatly folded on the table. Why do they linger? Some believe the hotel's past tragedies left an indelible mark on its walls. Energy born of despair, rage, and longing clings to the building like ivy, feeding on the living who cross its threshold. Others think the spirits are restless, bound by the suddenness of their deaths, replaying their final moments in an endless loop. Whatever the reason, one thing is certain. Hotel Andre may have changed its name, but it has not escaped its history. Paranormal investigators who have explored the property report overwhelming sensations of dread, sudden temperature drops, and voices caught on digital recorders. One chilling EVP captured a woman's voice whispering, "Don't go." Another, taken in the stairwell, caught a man's laughter low, cruel, echoing like a memory of violence. Motion detectors trigger without explanation, and cameras fail at crucial moments, as if unseen hands tamper with the equipment. For all its elegance and modern comforts, the hotel remains a nexus of unease. Guests arrive expecting luxury, unaware that they may share their rooms with those who never left. And when the rain lashes against the windows and the city sleeps, the building stirs. Shadows glide along the walls. Whispers curl through the vents. Footsteps echo in empty halls. And somewhere, in the quiet, a door clicks shut soft, deliberate like a warning or a welcome. So if you ever find yourself in downtown Seattle, drawn to the inviting glow of Hotel Andra, step inside, savor the charm, the refinement, the history. But when night falls and you turn out the light, keep one eye open. Listen for the faint strains of a piano, the slow creak of footsteps, the whisper that curls against your ear like a breath from another world. Because here, in this elegant refuge, the past is never truly past, and some guests never check out. And that concludes our chilling journey through Washington's most haunted places. From crumbling asylums to foggy lakes, from forgotten cemeteries to shadow-filled theaters, these stories remind us of one thing. The past never really stays buried. But now, it's your turn. Have you walked these haunted halls? Have you felt a hand brush your shoulder when no one was there? Share your experience in the comments, because every ghost story deserves to be told. If you enjoyed tonight's descent into darkness, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you never miss another tale from the other side. We have so many more haunted places to explore together. And trust me, the best scares are yet to come. Until next time, keep your doors locked, your lights low, and your courage high, because the spirits are always closer than you think. Good night, and sweet screams.